what you have is that saying that you need a white person to validate it first. The data from this study on one ancient Egyptian was released as long as maybe 2 years ago. And what this study showed that this one individual, his core ancestry, it was a he. I haven't seen the updated, but if you're talking about one genome and the way it's described, then it's the one that was presented 2 years ago. And eventually it was going to reach some media, but the thing is, the data was circulating and it wasn't fake. And what people are saying matches the data that I saw 2 years ago. This person is similar to Abu Sir, but without the Eurasian and without the quote-unquote sub-Saharan African. So, a very core Egyptian ancestry. And then when you study that core, they often combine the results with Western hunter-gatherers and East African hunter-gatherers, with Western hunter-gatherers, West Asian hunter-gatherers being stronger. What isn't being said is, after the data for this study, but before this study, Maestro from Egypt Search went to another study, and that, I don't even remember what it was about. I think it was about medical stuff. I read it. I think it was a genetic study on ancient Egyptians that focused very loosely on ancestry, but mostly it was about maybe an epidemiology type paper. I think it was about certain genes. I don't remember what they were. I think they were related to, I guess, disease. I don't remember. I skimmed through the paper to see where the hard data was for these genomes, because Maestro, who you probably haven't heard much of, he goes by Elmaestro on Egypt Search. He's a moderator, and he was once on a panel on Saram Hotep's channel, but I didn't run the tests that he did, but I was able to verify that these genomes existed. I downloaded one of them. I didn't process it and verify his findings. But I don't doubt his findings, because he didn't make this up. Like, this data is there. Anyone could have done this. If I had more time, I would do it. I would follow his steps just to say, look, I followed these steps. I got the same results. Holler if you hear me. I might still do that if he gives me the steps. But he tested a bunch of Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, from pre-dynastic, Old Kingdom, all the way up to, I think, New Kingdom. Not Ptolemy era, but up to New Kingdom. Maybe is the Ptolemy era part of New Kingdom? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it has its own thing. And he tested them. And his results weren't that different from the results that are seen with the study that I said I looked at a year ago, but it's coming out now and people are talking about it. But there was a big difference. He compared it to more ancient populations. And, of course, he had a larger sample size. He had a bunch of ancient Egyptians, probably like 10. Some ancient Kerma, the Kadruka sample that was battered about. People talked about. And his results were similar to the one sample that people are talking about now, except for he showed that both the Eurasian and the Sub-Saharan African wasn't just a matter of it happened after, let's say, they say the Eurasian came after the Hyksos. There was just an increase. But some of the samples didn't have either. So this increase was territorial. So there was an increase. It didn't affect everyone. And that's probably the major difference. Since he compared more older populations, like he compared some ancient Kenyans and I think modern maybe Lebanese or ancient Lebanese sample. The Kadruka sample, which is, I think it's like 800 or so BC Sudan. The Kerma, I think Kerma was a kind of empire / nation. I don't know if it was very urban, but you can have an empire of villages if you got the horsepower. Or in this case, the bows or whatever. I don't know if they had horses by that time. They probably did, I would think. They had some war donkeys. So that's the big difference, is that when you compare the core Egyptian ancestry, because what's presented in the media right now is that core Egyptian ancestry is just related to modern Egyptians. Well, if you add the larger sample size with what Maestro had, you see some of that core ancestry in ancient Kenyans. But with modern populations, it's not really moving around that much. It's probably in the Sudan, it's in Egypt, and what it also showed is the Abu Sir sample was almost new Eurasian ancestry. It had very little of the core ancient Egyptian ancestry that was isolated when Maestro did his comparisons to these populations. So there definitely was population turnover, but you still see this ancestry both by the one sample that people are talking about and Maestro's larger sample size. You still see it relatively heavy Copts. And this is something that people have kind of known. So when I say relatively heavy, it could have been larger and it might not have been much of a surprise. But from what I've seen, it's like 25 to 35%. Which, 25%. Going all the way back to what was strong in the pre-dynastic. Because that's what he was checking for, is like, what's the oldest core exclusive Egyptian ancestry? Where is it? Modern Copts had it stronger than Abu Sir. Which really brings into question what was up with Abu Sir. Like, why was that pushed out as, hey, we tested ancient Egyptians, and they're quite different than ancient Egyptians. Two of them lacked it completely by Maestro's, by his comparisons and his methods. Now, speaking of that, I think somebody by now should have repeated it. You know, to some extent, you got to be your own peer review. And I'm looking at all these sites that are just now, and even someone like Chief X could follow the directions and repeat it. I definitely could do it. He has a whole team of people. Lots of people could have done it. But the thing is, Maestro didn't reach out to anyone to say, hey, you know, and I'm not sure if anybody reached out to him. There was some talk about having Soy Kita repeated. And that may go down. Especially now that you can add more samples to it. You can add the one that just came out, compare that, isolate it, and you can really have some fun. I would do it. I'm just busy, man. I'm like, you've seen some of the stuff I'm working on. So, you know, excuses, but you can scroll back in my channel. You can see I'm working on a damn video game pretty much by myself. And it doesn't get made if I don't put in the work, so I'm busy. But there's other people that have time on their hand. They're skeptics. They can follow directions. They could repeat it. They could disprove it and have me do a makeup video where I'm like, yeah, it was, forget what I said. I don't see it that way. And there's actually one aspect of the study I need to mention before I go on. Maestro tested their pigment genes, and I used my pigment genes. This is one thing that I checked with the same study. Not with the same study, with the same I guess technology, or you know, the same website that runs the pigment genes. When Maestro sequenced those genomes, and like I said, I tracked it to see where he got them. I downloaded one. I couldn't download them all and save them because they are huge, but I saved one. So I know where they're at. I told people where they're at on Egypt Search. So I know that you can do this, that you can take those genomes, process them, probably with some programming language I don't know, like R. And I actually had to use R, but I used chat to help me to process my 23andMe genome to run my my phenotype on the one that, on the phenotype test technology that I mentioned, on the one that Maestro used with ancient Egyptians. And it also proved they black, to put it simple. Because all of them, like I'm maybe D.L. Hughley's complexion, all but like one Nubian and one Egyptian were darker than me. The other ones were like, I think I come off as light brown, even though, you know, if anything, I'm a little darker than D.L. Hughley. So I'm not light brown by Jennifer Lopez standards, I guess you would say. And speaking of Jennifer Lopez,